Askreddit. Which conspiracy theory is so believable that it might be true? That your phone's microphone is constantly hot and it's listening for keywords to target advertising. Most glaring instance where this happened to me was when I walked into a colleague's office. He had just gotten a standing desk, but one that goes on top of his existing desk, rather than a standalone, pun, model. That's important to note. I said, nice standing desk. When did you get that? Thanks, just today. He replied. That was literally all that was said about the desk. We talked about work related stuff, and as I walked out and checked my phone, there was an ad on Facebook for that exact model of standing desk. I have never owned one, wanted one, or googled one before. Yet there it was on my feed. Tinfoil hat be damned, they listen in. My conspiracy theory. Facebook purposely attempts to ruin people's relationships because the drama gets more views and more views sell more ads. Several years ago they introduced a feature so that your comments on other pages would show up in your friends' feeds. So if you're secretly an atheist and you comment on some atheist page, it shows up in your devout Southern Baptist Grandma Muriel's timeline, even though it's a conversation that has nothing to do with her and there's no reason for it to be. As a result, Facebook outs you to your family and grandma is typing away at all the evil satanists trying to corrupt her grandson. And if you comment on a public post, it's unavoidable. You used to be able to control who could see your comments even on public posts by other pages, but at the same time Facebook introduced their tattletale feature, they took that ability away. Now if they were to stumble across the same page they'd be able to see your comment, but after that change, Facebook started pointing everybody you know directly to it. Not to mention, the privacy settings are difficult to find, difficult to understand, and with each passing year gives you less and less control over who sees what. By forcibly combining everybody's social circles, Facebook is trying to generate conflict. They want to generate conflict because the conflict happens on Facebook, which means people logging on to Facebook more often and seeing more ads. They're essentially an internet tabloid, except instead of showcasing the personal drama of celebrities for clicks and sales, they're doing it to you instead. Ever notice how the vast majority of family drama, relationship fights, etc. these days happens on Facebook? That's by design. Facebook is literally destroying the social fabric to make a buck, consuming relationship stability like it's an oil refinery consuming crude. The Laurel Canyon Conspiracy. Basically, if you look at the counterculture revolutionaries in the music industry in the 60s, most of them were the children of military intelligence people. So the theory is that the free love, lots of drugs movement they inspired was done intentionally to distract the youth from a full-scale revolution. The thought was, if the angry youth of the mid to late 60s were too high and getting laid all the time they would stop caring as much about societal ills and then basically sleepwalk through the 70s, which they did. I stumbled upon this when I was reading up on Jim Morrison and how his father was the one who called in the fake strike at the Gulf of Tonkin that kicked off the Vietnam War and which was shown later to have been a false flag. Turns out, a lot of his contemporaries were also children of highly placed military people with ties to intelligence. Strange that they all wound up in Laurel Canyon as part of the same movement. The recommended food pyramid is created by the FDA, but the FDA is funded by a lot of certain food industries, poultry, dairy, etc. They in turn made the recommended nutrition based off of their funding by these companies and not based on a well-balanced diet. The government experiments on the mentally insane because no one will believe someone with that kind of medical history. There's a conspiracy theory that Flight 93 was shot down by hastily scrambled jet fighters and or missiles in the interest of public safety, and that the government made up the relatively wholesome the passengers decided to fight the hijackers and sacrifice themselves story to keep up morale. I don't know whether it happened or not, but I can entirely believe it might be true. This is going to get buried, but smartphone batteries. Remember when phones used to have removable batteries and now almost none of them do? A law enforcement agency could make you think that your phone is powered off when in reality it's just displaying a black screen. That way they could still track you, listen to your conversations and take pictures. You would never know for sure. UFOs are just time travelers from the future just checking us out. They keep their distance so not to disrupt anything and to cause a butterfly effect that may affect them. Our smart devices are always listening / data being stored / sold, not just search history / social media use. A couple months ago, my sister came over to give me a birthday present. I had never heard of the item before, so I had never searched for it / talked about it online. I had a cell phone in my pocket and an Alexa in the room. We talked about the item in that room. Later that evening, an hour or two later, targeted ads for that exact item were showing up all over my social media feeds. That Russians are behind the anti-vax movement as a way to thin the herd immunity for the next generation of Americans. Nuclear war is old news. The next big threat will be biological. That we are living in a simulation. We've gone from no electricity 150 years ago to virtual reality. There may be civilizations billions of years more advanced. One of my favorites is that the government was behind #THROWBACKTHURSDAY in order to get us to digitize and upload pictures that they would not have had access to in order to improve age progression / facial recognition algorithms. This might be in here already, but the push for $15 minimum wage was created and supported by the companies that would most negatively be affected. Fast food, McDonald's, shipping, Amazon warehouse workers, etc. to drum up negative public perception of these workers as entitled. Why should they get $15 / HR flipping burgers? When I'm making $25 / HR doing, and these jobs aren't for supporting a family. Then, when they inevitably ask for too much, as they were secretly supported to do, make the switch to automation in virtually all these jobs. Public perception will be behind the corporation standing up to the entitled losers and make the transition easier on the company's annoying ass AI that take at least 2 to 3 years of true public use to perfect. No one will feel bad, and now those low-skilled workers will be out of a job with virtually no mobility. The song TikTok, as performed by KE$HA, was written by a guy named Benny Blanco. Its lyrics include the line "We kick them to the curb, unless they look like Mick Jagger." That's a little bit strange, right? Mick Jagger wasn't exactly at the height of his attractiveness when the piece in question came out. Stranger still, it wasn't the only popular song to paint the man in a pleasant light. Moves Like Jagger, performed by Maroon 5, was released at around the same time, and Benny Blanco also had a hand in writing that one. This is where things start to get creepy. The song The Time, Dirty Bit, as performed by the Black Eyed Peas, features the following phrase: "All these girls, they like my swagger, they calling me Mick Jagger, I be rolling like a stone." It was written by John D. Nicola, who used to produce the music for a band called Kara's Flowers, although you might know them better by their current name of Maroon 5. The song Heart and Soul, as performed by the Jonas Brothers, contains a verse that ends with "making mistakes, but that won't matter if you can swag like old Mick Jagger." Antonina Armato wrote the piece, and she is managed by Downtown Music Publishing. Care to guess who else they manage? Here's a hint, it rhymes with Balloon Hive. This web of connections extends all throughout the recording industry, but one thing remains unclear. What's the link back to Mick Jagger himself? There must be something, because if you have a look at Google Trends, you'll see that his popularity spiked with the release of each song. The only time in recent memory when it has been higher is during a period in March of 2014, when his girlfriend died. Some people have suggested that the man's name is just easy to rhyme with swagger, but popular usage of the word, in reference to something other than a walking gait, came about after the aforementioned songs had hit the airwaves. In other words, Jagger prompted swagger, not the other way around. Why does there seem to be a cabal of artists trying to artificially inflate the performer's appeal and popularity? What benefit is there in promoting an aging rock star? Who is actually behind this odd trend? In order to answer those questions, we need to turn to Vivendi. This is a company which owns a lot of stuff. Their subsidiaries include Dailymotion, Ubisoft, Gameloft, and the Universal Music Group. The Rolling Stones signed to Universal Music in 2008. In 2010, all of the songs listed above were released. Look at those Google Trends again. 2008 marked Mick Jagger's lowest ever dip in popularity, and the slump continued until February of 2010. right after TikTok became the most popular song on the radio. In September of that same year, the Rolling Stones re-released their Egg concert movie, securing the #1 spot on 4 different countries' charts, the US and the UK being 2 of them, 2nd place on 4 more, and a double platinum certification in Canada. Strangely enough, though, the only other place, besides the United States, where platinum status was achieved was in France, which is where Vivendi is located. What if all of this was carefully planned and executed? What if there's a shadowy organization that's intent on promoting Mick Jagger for their own profit? What if I made all of this up on a whim and just found whatever tenuous evidence I could to support it? You have been visited by Danny DeRito. Subscribe to get danked. Thanks for watching.